Welcome back to the Outside Edge podcast with me, Paddy Arnold, and my esteemed co-host, Trent Park, once more. We're going to keep it pretty brief because we've got a really exciting exclusive interview with David Payne, currently injured at Gloucestershire and Welsh Fire, left arm seam bowler, absolute gun. And he's just come back from winning the Big Bash with the Perth Scorchers, and he's just recuperating ahead of the T20 Blast and the 100 in August, which he will be forming a pretty part of a pretty star-studded Welsh Fire lineup. He's also been in and around the England camp over the last few years. He made his debut against the Netherlands last summer. The first person we've interviewed, Trent, who was on that side of the camp. We've obviously got O'Dowd, Pringle and DeLeader under our belts, but David Payne now the fourth member of the England tour of the Netherlands to make his appearance on the podcast. He collected some pretty interesting souvenirs on the way. He got the match ball for the one scalp he picked up, despite should have had two if it weren't for Liam Livingston. With a pretty awful clang. He also got his cap, some media stuff, and a signed shirt signed by the entire England team as well. But he's setting his sights on another England call-up. Obviously, there's a load of left-arm seamers who are sort of knocking on the door of the England camp, but he believes he's up to the challenge, and I believe so too. He's an absolute gun.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
What's even nicer, Trent, is that he's an aggressively good bloke, which counts for a lot more than cricketing ability on this show.
Yes, aggressively nice, aggressively good salad, and aggressively pretty smile. So everyone get around him. He's one of the nicest blokes you'll ever meet, and hopefully you enjoy the interview.
Yeah, without further ado, we'll get into the interview. We're going to have another episode of the podcast out this week with some slightly more accomplished analytical chat about what's been happening in cricket, as well as Village Moment of the Week. Stick around. We've got a weird draft at the end of this as well. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into this chat with Sid Payne, absolute legend. And if you want to go over and watch it on YouTube, you can fall in love with him for 40 minutes, much like our dear Treno just did. But anyway, without any more natter, here is Mr. David Payne.
Hi, I'm David Payne, left arm seamer for Gloucestershire, Welsh Fire, and one game for England.
So good to have you on, David. Payno, Sid, whatever you want to go by, we'll sort of pick and choose as we go. Obviously, you've just had some successful surgery on your right ankle, bit of discomfort in the Big Bash. Do you want to just tell us where you're at as we approach the season?
Yeah, to be fair, I'm at a much better place than I was, I guess, towards the end of the Big Bash. It was, as you said, it was really uncomfortable, I guess, towards the end of the Big Bash. And it was a decision I was pretty clear about, having finished that tournament, that it needed to get sorted. And it feels like it's been very successful. The surgeon was very happy, and all the discomfort seems to have gone. And at the moment, I think we're about 4 or 5 weeks into rehab. Should be back running in the next couple of days. Gymming is up and running, and I think bowling, the aim is to start bowling in a couple of weeks, hopefully. So everything's on track. I think we're aiming for the T20s towards the end of May. It would have been nice to try and get back for some Champa, but I think it's just the loading's the most difficult thing for that. But so everything feels good and everything's on track at the moment.
Good to hear. While we're on the BBL, let's go straight into it. Paddy and I sort of love to take the piece out of the Big Bash and how it's like sort of declined over the last couple of years, but it's back in a big way. Last year was absolutely gun. What did you make of your first year down under?
Yeah, I think you summed up pretty well, actually, that it's a tournament I've always watched, and I think people have always admired from the outside, but it did seem like the last couple of years something was going wrong. And of course, the pandemic wouldn't have helped any tournament. Yeah. Certainly from my perspective in Perth, especially, the crowds just seem to grow game on game by the thousands, and obviously being able to host the semi and the final, like those crowds were insane, and the atmosphere was, those are the biggest crowds I've played in front of, and it was just so loud. And the stadiums there are obviously so different to English grounds, mostly everything. But the tournament, I thought the tournament was great. Yeah, every game. I don't know. Obviously, my first experience, I also probably loved it more because it was the first time I'd been in Australia for a long, long time. And I couldn't say a bad word about it, to be honest.
Can you tell us a little bit about the sort of animalistic primal nature of Scorchers fans? Like any nuggets of mania that you witnessed in your half a campaign?
I don't know about animalistic. They are different and they just seem to love cricket, don't they? I guess England's always masked by football and rugby a little bit, especially football. So like cricket's always down the pecking order a little bit. Whereas in Oz, I guess it's cricket and then Aussie rules in the off season. So you just get the games after a game. It's just not the amount of people that hang around after a game, like screaming for an autograph, and it's just the whole way around the ground. Like they obviously try to get near the change room, but they just hang around on the opposite side of the ground. They're screaming, and like some of the lads go out there and we try and do our best, but you could be out there for hours if you try and did everyone. And like, but during the games, I say no, it's no, everyone's in there, everyone's cheering. It's just like because of the stadiums, it probably seems louder, but no, unfortunately, there's no, they're not that different in English.
I do have to say though, I'm a New South Welshman, and yeah, they're different breed out west. So please don't take it as a grain of salt. I'll just say that much. If we can get onto that final, mate, honestly, what a game. Nick Hobson and Cooper Connolly. What was going through your mind sitting on the bench watching that unfold the last 3 overs?
Oh, I was so nervous, lads, that I couldn't even leave the sheds. Me and Jai Richardson were the last, like when I noticed when we bat, most of the guys hung around in the change room, or like the batters tended to hang around the change room.
Yeah.
And then obviously as the wickets fall, they slowly make their way out. And as that innings went on, it was probably with the last 6 overs to go, as it got down to those last 5 overs, it kind of cleared out and it was just me and Jai. And I was like, then when AT got run out, I had to slowly kind of reluctantly start putting some pads on and stuff, and just hung around. And I hung in the change room until that last over because I just couldn't bring myself to go outside. I get a little bit like, I tell myself I'm not superstitious, but I do get like,
you're a cricketer, mate. You're only human.
Exactly. So I didn't want to move a little bit, and then literally until Hobbo hit that one out the ground, then me and Jai just sprinted down the corridor straight out there. Literally got to the outlet, looked around, and then Nessa was running in to bowl the final ball. So actually, yeah, but it was one of those things. Then you look back, and that's the only thing that I think, I wish I'd have probably gone outside a little bit sooner, just to take that all in, because it was so loud for that one ball, and then the aftermath. But yeah, so unfortunately, actually, the only recollections I've got of me and Jai just shitting ourselves a little bit.
It's interesting as well. I just wanted to go back to what we spoke about a little bit earlier. You've taken 145 T20 Blast wickets. You are top 10 T20 wicket takers in the competition's history, but you're 32 years old. What has this run up to this stage of franchise success? You've obviously played a couple of years of the 100. We'll go into that a bit later. What's that run up to that point been like? Can you just walk us through your career, how it feels to get there at this point?
Yeah, I guess in this day, the modern game now, I'm a little bit different. That my career, I try to not disillusion myself from anything that I wasn't. I was an okay bowler I found when I was younger, and then got into county cricket, and I've always tried to be realistic with where I'm at, and then just challenge myself to try and get better each year. So it wasn't until kind of 17 I had a good T20 year, and then thought I've got to keep building that. 18 again, that 3-year period, 17, 18, 19, I did pretty well. It was at the end of 19 where I started to think actually I could start pushing on for higher honours, and whether that franchise in England and stuff. And it probably never changed. I think it was the end of 19 that I did pick up the phone to James Taylor, who's one of the scouts at England at that point, and just said, look, I'm just interested. How close am I? What do I need to do to get there? And we had a good conversation, and he gave me some good feedback that I could go away and work on some stuff. And I think from that point, knowing that the feedback was also that you're pretty close, it just gives you that extra motivation to go away and keep going and keep trying to improve. So then from that point, I think ever since I've been close, and then you start to rub shoulders with better players and the best around the world. And when you get a taste of that, everything just makes you want to keep coming back for more and more. I think, as I say, I've just always tried to challenge myself to try and get a little bit better each year. And I guess in my personality, I also am someone, I can't just sit there and be happy. I always watch the TV, and I'm watching, like, I watch the IPL at the moment, and all I do is think, like, God, I want to be there, and like I need to get back in the nets, and like, I need to be better. I need to be better because that's where I want to be. So yeah, as I say, in terms of my career, I think I'd almost describe it, I've just always tried to be on like a small upward curve and just keep trending up and up and up. But as you say, because of that, because of not the Jofra Archers or whatever, the blokes who've taken it by storm straight away, it's taken me around 14 years to get where I am now. But I guess the good thing on my side is that Jimmy Anderson is just taking that.
He's changed the game.
Yeah, the year that I need to retire just seems to keep getting further and further away in my head now. So hopefully, yeah, I guess now I'm actually thinking I could keep playing for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Who knows? Just depends on how the body goes, I guess.
I just wanted to quickly ask about, so you said you got in touch with James Taylor to sort of work out your pathway, how close you are, how you can get there. For us as like just sort of cricket badgers who don't know a lot, how readily available are those sort of pathways, those touch points for up and coming county cricketers to like push on to the next stage in their career development?
I think a lot more so now than they were. I think one of the problems I think I've seen in the past with England was the communication between England and the county cricket, and when you were on the fringe, like where you were at. And as I say, in that instance, it was very much ended up having to be like, I always thought, someone might be in touch, you have a good year and someone might tell you that you're close or something, but it never seemed to come. So that was when it got to the point you start losing your head a bit, like, where am I? Where am I at? So that's when it ended up me having to make the phone call. But I think now that is something ECB have taken on board over the last few years, and they are a lot more communicative with players that are on the fringe, and like your Lions cricketers, and even blokes who are trying to, want to get to the Lions and don't quite make it into the Lions. So I also take, I also understand it from their side that you can't just keep in the loop with, say, 100 county cricketers and phoning them and saying, like, this is where you're at and that. So you have got to accept that it's the game we're in. And I guess the best thing I say is that it's much improved now, and that when you are there and thereabouts, there is much more communication.
I want to touch back on your humbleness for a second there. In an interview that you done in the BBL before the final, you said that you were taking like a new motto that you're a little fish in a big pond that no one knows. I want to know, when did you start to take on that motto and realize becoming a new player back home in UK sort of thing, where you're taking this motto back and trying to be taking the pressure off yourself to try and get back in the setup? When did this come about?
I think it's just, again, like trying to be real with myself, and that I've known this whole time in trying to get into franchise cricket, it was going to be like with someone taking a punt, if you like, with me. Like I think being in and around the cricket scene, you kind of know that tournaments abroad generally want a name. It's not necessarily going to be about, you could have a good year, but if you've not really then in that year played for England and done well for England or something, like if you've just had a good county year or a good 100 even, but your name's not quite got out there, there's that thing about overseas players. So I knew to get an opportunity to say, it was going to have to be someone taking a punt on me. And I'm just lucky in a way that my agent's pretty tight with Perth, and tends to recommend players to them, and tends to get them gigs over there. And it was the same story, even with the draft, even with the BBL, I knew from the draft, it was between me and Tamar Mills that they were looking at. And even in that instance, but as soon as he told me that, I said, I know they're going to go for Tamar because it's just a much bigger name. Yeah. And not just that, obviously, great bowler, but I think, if you're looking at two of us, if you said we were pretty similar, you go for the name. So it was, I felt amazing just to get that opportunity, even because then it feels like that's when you start to get your name out there a little bit more. But I also knew going over there, I just knew no one would really know who I was. And I guess in that way, it just took a load of pressure off, because over here, it made me realise that then back here, especially for Gloucester, you kind of think everyone talks to you in the senior player, the experienced player, you're this and that bowler. and it kind of then plays in your mind that you're the one, then you've got to take the wickets, you've got to be in the big moments, you've got to do this. Whereas over there was just none of that in my head, where like actually they don't even know. There's probably blokes who don't even know what I bowl out there. And it just played really well with my mindset. And so until I got that opportunity, I could have never done that. And now, bringing it back, I think it obviously can't be the same mindset, but I've got the feelings that I knew how relaxed I was and how that felt when I was bowling. So that I think those are the things then when I'm playing in England now that I can take into just how relaxed and trying to almost care less and put less pressure on myself.
It's funny you talk about the bias there, because we were talking about last show about Steve Eskenazi getting picked up with 100. And it wasn't until he went to Perth Scorchers and had a good season for them to realise how good he actually is at white ball cricket, because he's been killing it in the Vitality Blast and now had one good season away. And even his home country, there's still that bias of names.
It is. He's a perfect example that I knew that as well, because I knew my agent represented him, and he's kind of always has said about like he's the one name that you just can't believe has not been picked in 100 before. Every draft, it's like, can't believe, even if it's in the lowest bracket, that someone doesn't just go, that's a snag right there, because he's a gun.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the same thing, that it was just, I was really chuffed for him that Perth again just seem to, they don't mind picking a player where they're like, look, his stats are good, he seems like a good player, doesn't matter that no one knows who he is. And like you say, then he showed that he could do it on that stage as well. And then so I'm really happy for them. Then that's helped him obviously then now get selected in the 100. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does well in the 100, and it keeps going well for him.
Let's talk about the 100 then. Welsh Fire has been pretty torrid couple of years, let's be honest. You lost 8 of 8 last season. I'm sure you don't mind me exercising those demons. You're going to be with Stevie Eskenazi, but as well as that, you've got a pretty awe-inspiring, pretty incredible draft. I mean, look at yourself. I mean, we've got in quicks Shaheen Afridi, probably one of the best left-arm seamers in the world at the moment. No pressure. Harris Ralph, Jake Bull, David Willey, another left-arm seamer. Now, I don't mean to sort of forebode anything, but what are your goals going into the tournament with such a hot dressing room around you?
I think one of the best, it was difficult. Obviously, I was watching that draft and the names were coming up and I was thinking, how good is this? We got this, but this. Yeah. There was always that bit at the end, then I went, hang on, there's 3 left armers in our side now. And I've got to hope that it's like, I've got to hope that it's like when I traveled to Holland with England and we took, I think it was 4 or 5 left armers on that trip. And I'm hoping the mindset's like, it doesn't matter what arm you bowl with, we're just going to pick who we think is the best team. But so in terms of like the squad, I'm dead chuffed with how it looks at the moment. I thought they drafted really well. I guess I'm always a little bit skeptical just into like this. I've witnessed in the past now that players can sometimes not show, and a lot can happen between now and then. I think Shaheen's he's got test matches. He's now playing in the Blast for Notts. Like, I really hope that he turns up, because watching a guy like that is just going to be immense for me. As you say, he is probably the best in the world at the moment. And I think it really plays well into that. What I like is that then, as you've said, this takes a lot of pressure off me. The pressure is going to be on Shaheen, it's going to be on Harris Ralph, it's going to be on David Willey, and hopefully then I can just slide in the background and like kind of do well there. But I guess ultimately my goals then for the 100 are going to be to try and have that good campaign, and my eyes are going to be set on that October World Cup. I think like most blokes, that I've got to believe that if I can do well in the Blast and do well in the 100, that I can again kind of sneak into that squad.
Before we go into your... Sorry, Trent. Can I just butt in, mate?
Mate, go for it.
Before we go into your England prospects, your England debut as well, let's talk quickly about Michael Hussey, men's head coach. He played a bit for Perth Scorchers back in the day as well, replacing Gary Kirsten. Have you had any insight as to sort of what Mr. Cricket's going to be bringing to the Welsh Fire dressing room? What are you expecting for August, and what's in store?
I met him very, very briefly at the end of the BBL final. They kind of I didn't realize he was doing the commentary, and they kind of at the end of the game they whipped this like newsstand onto the ground where and then they quickly put three blokes and they're three commentators there, and they're doing like they're chatting away on the outfield, and then we were celebrating in the background. I went over towards some fans, and he kind of nipped in. I didn't see him, and just to say hello and greet him then. So I thought that was a really nice touch in itself, just to say hello from him. And then anyone else I've spoken to about him has just not had a bad word to say about him, really. They've just all said he's just an amazing bloke and a great guy. And I suppose they haven't really talked, like his cricket credentials speak for themselves. And then after that, we've had a couple of emails from him. Once the retentions were done, he'd sent out an email and was kind of like to the retained guys, look, this is how I see an 11 in T20 cricket, and this is how I'll look to draft in these kind of categories, and would love your... I like that he was quite honest and was like, I'm not going to know this county scene that well, so your opinions are going to be really helpful. Like, tell me some players that you like that you think we should be looking at, and this and that. So I thought that was a really nice start, just to show that and be like, want our help. And so I would say I think they drafted really well. I think he obviously helped. He obviously worked with England in that T20 World Cup as well, and I think, as I say, those boys seem to get on with him really well. So at the moment, it seems no reason that he's going to be a great coach to work with.
Did you point him towards anyone when he sent that email around?
There were a couple of names I put in there. I put Eski. To say that some of the cat were like obviously top hard hitters at the top, get off to a flyer. One of them bats through. I thought Eski was the perfect candidate for that.
Yeah.
He can get off to fly. He can also bat through on a tricky wicket. No one you'd be surprised at. It was kind of a lot of the guys that had kind of been in the 100, but then gone back into the draft. Some of the guys that had not retained with the Welsh Fire even put their names back in there and said, I think they're good cricketers. We've just not had a good couple of years. So, I thought for the most part, I'd say he drafted very well.
I've got to ask my question now before Paddy rudely butted in last time. This is sort of off topic what we were just talking about, but there's sort of been a resurgence of left arm quicks in white ball cricket of late, and basically leg spinners as well. There's sort of a new hot topic when you're picking and drafting these teams. Do you have any inkling why that is, playing these international games and these these franchise leagues? Why you're so hot at the moment?
I don't know I don't really, and it's been, as much as it's been great, it's also been frustrating because it is that thing of like
competition.
Yeah, suddenly out of nowhere, it seemed like when I first started, you start getting into it, and now it feels like, then at the same time, Luke Wood, Toppers, Sam Curran's been there, David Woolley's always been there. And suddenly there's like 5 versus Tamal. And I said, so for the Holland trip, I was actually just really pleased because I've always been thinking I'm fighting against all these left armers and trying to get in. And actually they went, even George Garner, I didn't mention him as well. Like there's 6 or 7 of us all now trying to, and getting into these England squads. But I don't know why. Leg spin, I guess I understand. Rashid Khan's taken that just by storm, and then leggies just seem to be doing really well. And I think because of the amount of right-handers, I think they are just, if you get it right, they're a difficult bowler to play. But left arm, I guess it's the same maybe, that a left armer who can swing it and then go across to right-hand bat. It's just something different. And I don't. Maybe you lads have got better insight.
I can assure you we don't. We mentioned it at the top of the show. Sid, let's give the listeners what they want. Walk us through your maiden outing for the Three Lions. Take us through the day. We want as vivid a detailed description as you can, because we all want to know as much about your debut as possible.
I guess the thing most people won't know is actually the night before, so the day before when they named the team, I wasn't named in it, and so I felt pretty down actually, because that was my 3rd tour with England. I thought it was going to be the 3rd tour where I don't play a game. And it's like the first 2 have been okay, like they're both new experience. I was just really enjoying it. But the 3rd one, I was like, I really want to play now. And they'd named the side, and I was like, oh, fuck, I'm not I'm just never going to play free. I'm just going to be the drinks boy, and it's never going to happen. And then it was about 8 p.m. and I'd missed a text. My family had come over, like we'd taken a punt for my family. I said to them, I was like, I think if I'm going to play in a game, it will be the last one. If I play, this will be it. So they flew out for the final week or the final few days. So I was with them and we were putting our daughter to sleep, and I was talking to my missus and just saying that, I was pretty down. And because we were doing this, I'd missed a text from Joss on my phone. And then I can't remember, I had to go off downstairs to get something, a drink or something maybe, and I'm walking down the corridor, and then Joss is walking down the corridor, walking towards me, and he's got this like smile on his face, and I was just like, "Hey mate," and he stopped and chatted, and it was just like, "Oh, I've been trying to get hold of you. Look, Toppers is pulled up sore. He's no good for tomorrow, so
Shock."
So you're going to make your debut," and I think I just was speechless. I just didn't know what to say to him, really. It went from, as I say, feeling really down to suddenly you're playing. And I was like, shit, it's actually going to happen. So, yeah, I would say I was pretty speechless. It was a very short conversation because all I could think about really was just going back to my wife and saying, I'm playing. Like, you've not come out here for nothing. It's going to happen.
You're never going to guess. Yeah.
And I remember as well, because our daughter's been a bit of a nightmare in terms of sleep. So it'd been another tricky night of getting her down, and she was laying on the bed holding her and just like looked knackered. So I ended up having to whisper, I was like, "Is this a good time to tell you I'm playing tomorrow night?" And then she obviously big beaming smile and was like, So then we just had a nice evening. I think we'd ordered room service and had a drink, and it was really nice. And then I did okay with my sleep and the nerves and stuff. But come the morning, just that going down to Breckie, everything's like the adrenaline's flying from the start. Like I knew it would be, but it's just you try and control it, you just can't. I couldn't wait to get there. And in the meantime, overnight, I knew a couple that Ryan Higgins, Graham Van Buren from Gloucester jumped on a flight. They were flying out in the morning. Like they were like, "We're coming. If you're playing, we're coming." My brother had got a flight. He hadn't told me. He surprised me. So then when I get to the ground, we're warming up. He's there on the boundary. He didn't know he was there. So that was really not like, it was really overwhelming. I guess the support from family and friends for that. And then, the whole build, like you're doing the warm up and you can't, I guess, in the back of your mind, your cap presentation's coming. And that, to me, that's like one of the most special parts about it. Cause you watch those on social media of other guys and it's always just like so cool, like a bit goosebumps. And I'd been thinking, like, I know we've got Mark Lane and we've got Richard Dawson on this trip. And I was like, it's got to be one of them. They're two Gloucester legends, really. So then you stood in the huddle when it comes, you just, it's undescribable, really. And then Boo Boo steps forward and it's like, everything, you couldn't take the smile off her face. Says some lovely words, you get the cap. And I don't know, for me, it was a little bit like that's, like almost like career complete.
Completed cricket, yeah.
Like, that's what you aim for. That is what the dream as a kid. And suddenly I'm holding this England cap and I'm gonna play for England. I'm stood around with like Owen Morgan and Joss Butler and these greats of England. And like, I just guess I've probably never been more proud than that moment in the huddle. Have my wife and my daughter stood next to me, kind of have photos of them. Like the physio, who people, no one knows the England physio normally, Craig DeWyman, he was actually in club cricket growing up. When I was 15, 16, I played for Bournemouth. He was my club captain. So like, just like an ironic path that he'd end up England physio. So we were there together on that trip. And so having had some photos with him and like, I don't know, it just seemed like the perfect day.
And then 3 overs in, Liam Livingstone just dropped a goober.
Oh God, that was horrible, because it goes up and like I think there was like relief in me, just like I'm gonna get one, like it's gonna happen, I'm gonna get a wicket. And then you just have to have that, like you see it happen and like you want to just rage inside and go bonkers. But you just know, I guess I've played enough cricket to know you just like that is not the right behaviour in the moment.
It happens.
You cannot do that. And you just got to, so I try, I do my best to keep it cool and be like, I guess I had to believe as well, like, okay, another opportunity will come, I'll get one.
Yep.
But then the day went on, I got into my last over and I still hadn't got one. I was thinking, come on, I just want. And I think, to be fair, I think Livy, out of everyone, who's probably feeling it the most, thinking he paid to get one.
Yeah.
So,
did he say anything after?
What, in terms of why he dropped it, or what?
well, in general discourse, or is it just sort of bridge burnt?
I think once I got the wicket, I felt like it was bridge burnt. Like, he was really apologetic, obviously, and he just said like, just went straight in the sun, completely lost it, couldn't see a thing. And I guess I try to, like, I do understand. Like, I'm not going to sit there and be like, nah, that's shit, mate. I should let it hit you on the head. And then the fact that I got a wicket, I guess that's, as a bowler, that's all you want. You just want at least one next to your name when you play your debut. So that definitely made everything better. But the boys, I remember the bus back, the boys got stuck into him pretty hard about it.
Nice to have a few on side.
You just described the perfect day. Family around, mates coming over, brother coming over, international debut, pole. I couldn't imagine a better place to have an international debut than Amsterdam. How did you celebrate? What did you do after the match with the boys? 3-0 series win. What did you get up to?
So we actually, I guess, for what you think, being in the place you're in and for what happened, I guess the one thing I noticed, like, I hadn't played that much 50-over cricket leading into that series. And I finished the game, and also with everything that happened through the day, the adrenaline, everything, like, I was buggered at the end of the game. Like, just after bowling first, I was knackered. And it was a lovely, like, I'm sure it was like mid-20s, 30 degrees all day, like the sun beating down us. And we got back, we all had a beer we got changed, had a beer in the hotel bar, wandered down the road. There was like a nice pub on the corner that we sat outside of. In England, they have a curfew every night. And I thought that would, to be fair, I thought that'd be lifted on the final night, but it's not really. They're pretty tight. I think, to be fair, I think obviously in occasions they're going to lift them and say they kind of, that's on pick and choose, and that's for management and captains, I guess, to decide. But on that night, we all went out, and to be fair, I don't think it was like, usually you've got to be back in the hotel before midnight, but this might have gone until 12:30, 1-ish or so. But I think most boys were also pretty knackered. It was obviously mid-season. Some boys were flying back and then playing a T20 game like the next day or so. So it was just like, we had, how many, 5-6 drinks. But it was just like that really nice atmosphere. You all sat down in chairs, sat outside in shorts and t-shirt, enjoying a beer. And again, I thought that, for me, the way I was feeling, how knackered I was like, this is just perfect, really.
Yeah. It's interesting. We've spoken to now 4 players who've been involved in that series, and I think the other 3 who we've spoken to, being Max O'Dowd, Baz the leader, and Tim Pringle, might have had a slightly different sort of conclusion to the series. But it's nice to hear that maybe part of the reason England are so good at short format cricket is that they might be a little bit more sensible post match.
Well, I just want to ask, while we're talking about Dutch cricket, you played T10 cricket. Baz the lead played T10 cricket as well, and he basically described it as a piss take who didn't really train and just enjoyed it, just about like a slogfest. What did you think of it? Like, initial thoughts of T10 cricket?
Paid golf holiday.
I bloody loved it, but probably for the reasons you've just described, really. In terms of a tournament, what you're used to with cricket, like to have that much downtime, you're at the ground for 2 hours or so, and you've played a match, and the casualness of it, I guess, there's not a huge amount of training, because there's no time for training. There's like 3 games a day. You get like there's like 2 days off in the whole thing, but you get obviously time, because you're only at the ground for a few hours, so there's a lot of time around that. And there's time for golf if you want to play golf. There's loads of time for just chilling by the pool. Like, you can make it a holiday. You can, but like, at the same time, the amount of overseas players that are involved and people that go, the standard is decent. I thought, like, you still got good cricketers, and you still got to perform. If you don't bowl well, you get thumped. Like, the ground's tiny, the pitches are all right, and I just thought it's fun. It was another tournament where, like, I don't think people take it too serious, especially bowlers, because you can go for 40 in your 10 in your 2 overs, and you've bowled all right. It, like, just the ball flies about. It's all a bit of a laugh. I think for that, it's just it's just great for 10 days.
Before we wrap things up, David, I just wanted to ask, One Day World Cup in October, what are you thinking? Do you reckon you've got a shot? Do you reckon if you have a good 100, you might be in amongst it? What is your prospects?
Yeah, I know it will be difficult. Like, I know England is so strong in white ball cricket that it's even harder to get in. But if I don't believe I've got a chance, then I kind of think, like, what am I doing? I fully believe that if I can have a good T20, I think for me it'll be more about the 100. If I can have a good 100 ball, and stand out a little bit in that, or just have a strong tournament. Especially, I think it matters as well, the team doing well. I think the Welsh Fire need to really bounce back this year and have a much better season. I want to contribute that, and I truly believe if I do that, then I've got to be there and thereabouts. Then at least then I'll be able to sit back and go, I've given it everything. I've done everything I can, and that's just how it is. Sitting here right now, I truly believe I can get that squad if I have a good summer. And
it sounds awful, but it probably looks quite up for you given how rotten Reece Topley's luck is as a sort of similar brand of left arm seamer. Yeah, exactly. At the moment, you'd say Toppers is probably their number one at the moment, and rightfully so. He's done so well for them. But you say he has struggled. He's really struggled with injuries, and then so it probably pushes it between myself and Luke Wood potentially. I think as the two, and that's probably how it was end of last year, going to Pakistan, and Woody had a great 100 ball, and so it was another thing where exactly look, I can where you can just accept the decisions and go, Woody's done well, Woody deserves this. I'm happy for him, and then you go away and I've got some stuff I need to work on. I know where I need to get better, and so I don't see it probably being much different now. This summer, it's going to be the guy. There's a few that will be penned in there, and then there'll be one or two spots available that are going to be for the guys that do well. Well, we'll be rooting for you when you recover from injury. Get back in the blast. We'll try and get down and see you in action at some point, and then without doubt we'll be rooting for you in the 100. Payne, it's been such a blast having you on. T20 blast, that's awful chat. Apologies. If there's anything you'd like to say, just get it out of the way now before we let you go. No, I appreciate having me, boys. It's been cool talking to you too. We'll catch up later in the season.
Lovely. Yeah, thanks, Payne.
If you're in Bristol, get in touch, obviously.
Yeah, our club's going on tour to Bristol incidentally in August, so even though that's 100 time, but who knows? Maybe our paths will cross.
Stay clear of us. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Outside Edge podcast, please.
Well, I don't know about you, Trent, but for me, that felt like probably the best interview we've ever done. David Payne, one of the nicest blokes I think we've ever had on the show. So open, honest, vulnerable, talented cricketer as well, obviously. Didn't shy away from our questioning and was just a genuinely lovely bloke to converse with. What a smile. What a salad. You had a few immediate reactions to those aspects.
Yeah, I think I fell in love with him for 40 minutes there. Just staring deep into his eyes. What a smile. What a salad. Just everything's just so pristine.
Yeah, looked after well. So great to have him on. We'll catch up with him later in the season because we're not letting Payne get away that easy.
No,
what a bloke. What a bloke. And what a gun as well. So fingers crossed things go well for him in the 100 and he can start banging down those selectors' doors again. So naturally, with one of the best pieces of content we've produced as a podcast, one of the most serenely put together, clean, crisp pieces of interviewing, we're going to now grossly juxtapose that with something horrible and pointless and stupid. It's draft time.
It is draft time. And we thought, well, what's the best way to cap off that interview with what we just said there? So pristine, clean, professional, sort of, we like to say professional for us anyway. Professional interview to one of the most stupid draft topics I've ever come up with in my whole life. This week, we're going to draft the best animals if they were cricketers. So for each pick, we're going to have to do a similarity of an actually current player or host X player and why you've picked that animal. Okay, so I want to hear, like, is it tub stuff? Is it rig, run, salad? Do you think they'll be just a good cricketer? So, Paddy, you're going to lead off this week, even though you won again. Shock.
Yeah,
you're going to lead off.
Getting too good at this. Yeah, before we get started, I just want to say this is utterly ridiculous, and I can't wait to be a part of it.
Yes,
I hate myself even more than I thought I ever did before. So to kick things off, I'm just going to read you the description of this animal, and then sub in the player that I think it represents. So
perfect.
The ostrich is a large bird native to Africa that's unable to fly and lives on open plains and grasslands. As a result of its strong legs and large wings, this large bird can sprint at speeds of up to 43 miles an hour and change directions in an instant. Cam Green is a large bird native to Africa that's unable to fly and lives on open plains and grasslands. As a result of Cam Green's strong legs and large wings, this large bird can sprint at speeds of up to 43 miles an hour and change directions in an instant. He's quick, he's 2 meters, he's big, he's burly, and he bowls heat. You can't tell me that Cam Green isn't an ostrich.
Oh, you've done me there. I did not see that coming at all. I did not see that coming at all. And you've won this draft again. I can't do fucking anything else after that. That was perfect. Oh, fuck.
We've referred to him before on the pod as like a newborn deer, like with two limp. But when I looked at the ostrich, the burly, powerful 2 meters.
Yeah.
Lives unable to fly, but lives on open plains and grass.
Yeah. Okay. I want to segue from that perfect number one pick to probably the most basic pick ever. I'm going for a horse.
Okay.
I've gone for particularly a Group 1 horse. I'm looking for a pristine fur, a good salad, and just muscles on muscles, like legs for days.
Yeah.
I'm liking this player to a Pat Cummins. Good teeth, good Barry beef,
good quads,
good salad, pristine salad, runs in all day. Probably the best looking animal out there.
Canters in, I would say.
Yes. Yeah.
Gallops.
Yeah,
I think that's a good shout.
And also, you got to think with a tub factor too. Horse, something to look at in tubs.
And good sperm as well.
Yeah.
Enough of that.
Enough said. Yeah. So that's my pick. I think that's probably everyone's done one pick. I think you still got me with the ostrich, but. Yeah.
I'm
nothing else to say.
Yeah, I'm gonna go again. It's slightly rogue, but the raccoon is among the most dexterous of animals. They use their hands and fingers to climb trees, fish for food, get around in bins. They catch toads, turtles, and crayfish using their hands. You can't tell me that Sunil Narayan can't be likened to a raccoon. Just the use of those fingers in so many different ways. I think the raccoon would be a handy little mystery spinner.
Oh, that's great, pick. Yeah, see, when you said raccoon at the start, I thought that this is a fucking disgraceful pick. He's one of the limpest animals I've seen in my life. But then the explanation is perfect. Mystery spinner, make a lot of money these days. We're watching the IPO at the moment. They're making some bank. Yeah. Which way it's going to go? No one knows. Okay. Number 2 for me, I'm going to go a dolphin. Now, I've got a sort of a hot take on why I'm picking dolphins number 2. See, dolphins are known as a protective pack. They swim in pods. They sort of protect people away from sharks and other fish and other mammals away from predators at sea. But underlying is a toxicity and bullying. And that is why I like the dolphin. Grade cricket and club cricket is what you think is everyone's nice and friendly, but there's a deep toxicity underneath that. I'm going to liken it to Ricky Ponting.
Oh,
this is a tough pick because he's my idol.
Tough from you as well.
Controversial because he's very hairy and dolphins are hairless, but they're pristine. They got shakes for days. Everyone loves them. And there's underlying toxicity and alphadom that Ricky Ponting has, what makes him so great. And that's why I've gone for the dolphin.
Yeah, I can get around that. That's a really good pick. I thought you were going to go for what my third pick is going to sort of go
No,
for.
I can't be doing that.
Which is dolphins obviously click clack quite a lot. They're quite chatty. They echolocate using their clicking. And that's why for my third pick, I've gone for the parrot. Now, I've like it. Yeah, of course. It's the first chat-based animal in the draft.
Yes.
And probably the most iconic, the chattiest going. I'd liken it to Rishab Pant and the old temporary captain debacle we had with Tim Payne. The thing I like the most about the parrot is that it recites things it's heard before. Now, I don't know about you, but none of my chat's original. And when I'm playing on a Saturday, it's purely recycled material from who I've heard better chat from the week before.
Yeah,
so that's
all
the parrot.
pre-planned.
Yeah, exactly. No originality. I'm a bad bloke. Much like the humble parrot.
Things we already know. Paddy's a bad bloke. That's a good number 3 pick, I've got to say. Look, it's pretty shit as an animal. Like on the food chain, it's pretty low. But that's what you like as a cricketer, because cricketers aren't up there in the food chain, mate. We're all scared little human beings. That's why we play club cricket.
What's alpha, beta? What's C in Greek? We're down there.
Omega, isn't it?
Omega males.
Right, my number 3. I was going to go for the giraffe and liken him to David Payne, but that's a little bit too basic, and I can't justify that.
David Payne is far too coordinated and agile a bloke to be likened to the clumsy giraffe. But boy, is he tall! Good limbs on him.
Great limbs. That's what I was going to go, like a left arm seamer sort of thing for the draft. But I won't do that. I want to go for a mountain lion. Now, I'm doing this because they're happy to graze all day. They're ready for a long day in the field. And they've also got pristine fur, pristine shapes. And while they got pristine shapes, I'm going to like them to an Ian Bell. Probably the shape god of all time. Just something you can just like sit and just watch all day long. A mountain lion, I would say that. They just look cute. They look good. Really fast reflexes as well. So yeah, that's my number 3 pick.
That's a really good shout. Likened to the Shermanator as well. Really good. And also Ian Bell, he's got a bit of a mane on him, doesn't he? Back in the primal.
Yes.
Prime Ian Bell. Had quite
primal Ian Bell.
Well,
I would love to see that.
Makes me feel a certain type of way, Treno.
What would be a primal Ian Bell? What situation?
Don't want to know. Actually, I do want to know. No, I think it's in the bedroom. I reckon he's a freak in the showers. Right, this is so loose. Okay, those are our drafts. I went for the ostrich, likened to Cam Green, the dexterous raccoon, likened to Sunil Narayan, and also sort of good like salad combinations. The raccoon's got pretty trendy tail.
You reckon?
Coordinate. Well, I mean, it's got stripes.
Raccoon's pretty gross.
No, it's gross because it hangs out in bins, but its tail is. You saw fucking Madagascar. They knew what they were doing.
I've also seen raccoons, so they're not very nice.
and then I rounded it off with the parrot, likening it to Chirpmeister General Rishab Pant.
I've gone for the horse, particularly a Group 1 horse in Pat Cummins. Basic, I know. Come at me, I don't care. Number 2, I've gone for the dolphin. Slightly toxic, pristine, Ricky Ponting. That just ticks all the boxes.
Intelligent blokes as well.
Yes, and really good in a pack. And number 3, I've gone for a mountain lion, just for shape god, good reflexes, and liking that to Ian Bell. And that wraps up probably the weirdest, the worst, and probably the nichest draft we'll ever do.
The one I'm going to try to forget the quickest, but no, I'll be unsuccessful in doing so.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones where we try to go to sleep tonight, and there's 4 picks that come straight to mind, and I won't be able to sleep. Yeah,
I know that I have a feeling deep down that you're going to win this one because you've gone for animals which are aesthetically pleasing. They are physical. I've gone for the sort of, what wins cricket games, which is pretty grimy, but get the job done kind of weirdos.
But what does win cricket games? I don't know.
Well, yeah, time will tell. April is here. May is coming. Cricket is round the corner. The county championships kicked off. The IPL's bringing in the summer. I can't. Goosebumps. Pinch me, mate. But anyway, without any more natter, we wrap up the pod there. Thanks so much to David Payne for coming on. Probably the best interview we've ever done and will ever do. So don't be surprised if it's all downhill from here. And thanks for tuning into the draft. We've got another episode, as we mentioned at the top of the show, coming this week with Oscar S. Which will be a much more analytical dive into cricket that's been happening lately, and not comparing cricketers to wild animals as we just did. Now go vote on the socials, put Trent out of his misery because he can't stop losing for love nor money. And it's going a little bit to my head. So it's been Paddy, it's been Trent. Thanks for listening to Outside Edge podcast. Once again, we'll catch you very soon.
See yous.